Today's lesson talks about life in ancient Egypt. We talked about the geography previously. So, to start with life in ancient Egypt, first comes the rulers. Around 2600 BC, the Egyptians started the first phase, as we said, that was known as the Old Kingdom. They ruled the government or they ruled the Old Kingdom as a theocracy. Theocracy is a system of rule in which the same person who is ruling is both the religious leader and the political leader. So, the leader of the country or the leader of the kingdom is both the political leader and the religious leader. This is known as theocracy. The first Egyptian leader was called the king. Later on, they changed the name, and the name was known as Pharaoh. The Pharaoh in Old Egyptian language means great house. The term was actually given to the person based on the place where the king and his family lived in. Pharaohs had total, complete power over their kingdoms. The Egyptian citizens believed that the person has authority from God, that they are wise, and they will help the people to survive. So they did not argue about the fact that they have total control and they control them both politically and religiously.
بسم
The,
الله.
yes,
ممكن تأكسبتي ياسمين السقا.
guys, next time once I start explaining, I won't accept anyone. We already leave room like about extra 10 minutes and I have no one in the waiting room. There's no one. I already clicked on her name like a couple of, before I start explaining. Maybe it's the internet.
خلاص اوكي سوري.
Okay. No, it's okay. Now, the pharaoh appointed bureaucrats. Who are bureaucrats? These are Egyptian citizens who have government tasks to do. What do they do? What's their work? They carry out the orders of the pharaoh. They take whatever orders the pharaoh says, spread it to make sure that they are applied in the kingdom. They oversee or they supervise any building projects and they collect taxes. So the bureaucrats act like a link between the pharaoh and the kingdom itself. Now, the pharaoh owned all the land in Egypt. As we said, they have complete and total power over the kingdom. Because the kingdom was too big, sometimes the pharaoh would distribute the land officials, they distribute the land or divide the land among the people of the high class, among the priests, among the wealthy families, and among the government officials or the bureaucrats to control and take care of it. So, when the land was too big, the pharaoh would delegate power or move on some of his power to some of the people in the higher classes. Who are these people? The government officials or the bureaucrats, the wealthy people or the high class, the elite families, and the priests. Now, as a religious leader, this was the political part, or the pharaoh being a political leader, the tasks and what do they do. Now, the pharaoh as a religious leader. The Egyptians believed that the pharaoh, whoever he was the son of Ra, the Egyptian god of sun. They also believed that the pharaoh was the god sent on earth to protect Egypt. So, as the religious leader, the pharaoh had to participate in all of the Egyptian ceremonies to help the kingdom develop and thrive. For example, in the harvest season or when it's time for the harvest season, the pharaoh should be the first one to cut the first grain at harvest time. This is a sign of good luck and fertility and a lot of crops to harvest. Now, Egyptians worshipped many gods. They believed that, just like the Mesopotamians, each god was controlled or was controlling a certain natural force or was responsible for a certain natural phenomena. Egyptians depended on the sun and river to harvest their crops. These were the two main parts of their lives. Therefore, the most important gods were Ra, the sun god, and Hapi, the river god. Egyptians also believed that after death, there was another life that was waiting for people. This afterlife might be better or worse depending on your actions in your present life. The Egyptians wrote one book that talks about this topic in details, which was known as the Book of the Dead. It talked about what happens when the person dies, the trip to the other land or the other side, and what to expect in the afterlife. Now, early Egyptians or the ancient Egyptians believed that the only people who control their afterlife or can enjoy their afterlife were pharaohs because they are descendants of gods. They also believed that the soul rests, that the body rests, and that the soul goes into another journey, and that the soul is the one that moves and enjoys the afterlife. Because they thought that the body is going to stay and only the soul is going to move on, they started the process of embalming or protecting the bodies and making it stay for a very long period of time. After time passed, Egyptians began to believe that everyone, not only the pharaohs, could enjoy afterlife with a deal made with the god of the dead, which is Osiris. So they believed that if they made certain deals with Osiris, everyone, not only the pharaohs, can enjoy the afterlife. Now, when they started embalming, this process was very costly. It was very high in materials and it would take time. So only the high class people and of course the pharaohs were embalmed. The rest of the people were not, or the rest of the Egyptians were not. Now, the steps of the embalming, or as you all know it, the mummification, it starts with number one, the priests would remove the body's organs. They would put these organs and store it in special jars. These jars, they're here on your right, were known as canopic jars. Each jar had a certain organ in a certain different shape. So the body was now empty. The body is then stuffed and covered with salt called natron. And then the body is stored for many days so that it becomes stiff and dry, holding the same structure. So they would remove the organs, the body is now empty. They would stuff the body with salt and cover the body from outside with salt, leave it to dry up and to become very stiff, not soft, just like wood. And then the body after a couple of days becomes stiff, but at the same time, the body shrinks in size because all of the water in the body has now been absorbed by the salt. So the last step after this shrunken dried body is or really done or is fully dried, they start wrapping the body in strips of linen. Linen was a very fine material that wouldn't stick to the body unlike cotton. After wrapping up the body in linen, they would seal it in a coffin. This coffin is usually decorated and shaped like the person who is inside. Now, the wealthy families, as well as the pharaohs, had their coffins put or protected or sealed inside tombs. The poorer people did not pass through all of this process of the mummification or the embalming. Instead, they were buried and their coffins were put in caves or under the sand. The Egyptians viewed the animals not only as pets but as sacred creatures. They believed that their souls connected with the souls of the people in the afterlife, and they believed that they were somehow connected to the gods. So, even though some of the ancient poor Egyptian people were not embalmed, some of the animals, or most of the animals, were embalmed because they were considered as sacred. Through the process of embalming, the Egyptians learned about the human body. The more organs or the more people they embalm, the more they know about the organs, their place, their division, and what are they connected to. They started learning how to open up a body and how to sew up and close a body. Therefore, later on, they learned how to sew open wounds, not only a whole body. They also, after knowing the anatomy of the body, knew how to set or bring back broken bones. They wrote down this or these medical information that was found on papyrus. Therefore, they created the world's first medical books. Now, remember when we said that the poor ancient Egyptians were built either in caves or in sand? The pharaohs were built inside
مش منا.
very big. Yes.
مش في ناس عايزة تدخل.
So as we said, the ancient Egyptians, the normal people, they were built either inside caves
هو بس
or under the sand. But pharaohs were different. In order to honor the pharaohs, they had to build greater or bigger tombs. These tombs were known as pyramids. They took a hierarchical or a triangular 3D shape, and this is where the pharaoh was buried. Inside the tomb or inside the pyramid, they would place the canopic jars, they would place clothing, jewelry, furniture, and other personal belongings because they believed that the pharaoh is going to use it in the afterlife. Now, these big tombs, known as the pyramids, how were they built? It took thousands of workers over years. It took carpenters, it took architects and engineers, as well as the farmers during the famine seasons to build these huge temples or tombs. How was it built? Most of the theories conclude that they would build one step at a time, and in order to take the stones up to the second level, they would use a wooden slide or lever to move the stones on. . The theories or the findings also stated that not only not only wood was used in the process of building the pyramids, they also used copper tools to cut the stones into huge blocks. So the materials or the minerals that were used in building the pyramids were copper tools, wooden sleds or the slides that were used to pull the stones, and huge blocks of stones, sandstones actually. Now, there was one tactic about the pyramid that was discovered. This is why it was one of the main reasons, apart from the size, that makes the pyramid one of the seven wonders. The entrance of the pyramid faces the north, and it was positioned in a way that, according to the 365 calendar day, which is the modern day calendar, it would take light inside into the tomb or into the place where the pharaoh is buried. Scientists also believe that pharaohs were developed in maths because in order to build a pyramid, they had to know the angles, they had to know the degrees of how to calculate the number of blocks, where to put the blocks, and how to shape them in a hierarchical system. They believe that the pharaohs developed a system of numbers that was based on fractions, which means that one as a whole can be divided into four quarters, two halves, three thirds, and so on. And this is the system that helped them divide the stones and put it into this level. As we already said, the Great Pyramids or the tombs were later on considered as one of the seven wonders of the world. Its equivalent, the height of the pyramid is equivalent to a 48 floor or story building. It's 500 feet tall, and there are more than 2 million stone blocks in each pyramid. The size of the pyramid or the base of the pyramid, the bottom of it, extends to cover an area of around 9 football fields. Now, this is where we're stopping for today. What you need to do is you need to go back to the slides, to go back to the video that will be uploaded right after the session. What you have to do is I want you to draw a timeline and write down all the accomplishments and developments that happened during the Old Kingdom, because this is where we started. So, going back to the first slide, you're going to draw a timeline for the Old Kingdom. The first point should be the government, and you should write that the type of the government is theocracy. You need to know what's theocracy, but you're not supposed to write it on the timeline. The second point should be the embalming or the mummification. This is the second thing that was done during the old life or the old kingdom. The third advancement or the third accomplishment was the tombs or the decoration of the tombs. Fourth was the medical knowledge or the medical book. And inside the medical knowledge or the medical skills, you need to divide it that they knew how to sew open wounds and put back broken bones. The fourth advancement would be building the pharaohic tombs or the pyramids. fifth would be advancements in maths and developing the system of fractions. The sixth would be advancements in astronomy and building the pyramids or the top of the pyramid to face the north. So you need to use these slides to write down the accomplishments of the Old Kingdom. And I'm going to check it tomorrow. I need it tomorrow by the end of the school day, which means by 2 p.m. you should finish it and send it on the SMS. Please note that we're no longer going to send any of our assignments on the email. You need to send it on SMS. Do you have any questions concerning today's session?